the nice thing about Bitcoin is it's a network, right? It's physically, literally and physically a network. It's a network of nodes that secure a blockchain that enables Bitcoin to be a better form of money going forward. And therefore we can measure all the elements of a network just like any network. And I have a buddy in the industry, Tim Peterson, who runs a firm called N Squared Crypto, and he's N Squared Value on Twitter. And he's been tracking this model, this Metcalfe's Law model for years. And based on that calculation, he comes up with a fair value of the Bitcoin network, the Bitcoin blockchain network, at around $91,000 or $92,000 today. And what's interesting is if you look at history, in 2017, that value was 10,000. Now, if you remember, we went from 10,000 in November to 20,000 in December. So we got 2 times fair value, and then we had a big correction and we fell well below fair value until the next bull market started. Then in 2021, fair value had, gone up to about 33K. But we went all the way up to 69K in November of 21. And then we had a big correction. So here we are in 2025, same 4-year cycle, fair value at 91. We only got up to 125, 126. We didn't get a full 100% higher. We never hit that 170, 180 that people were calling for. And so I will argue that the correction will be more muted because of that, because it's likely we fall not just back to fair value, but probably below. Well, why should we fall below? Well, corrections occur when people who bought for, we'll say, less than ideal reasons. Like if you think about the cycle of any investment, when the price is below the fair value, right? And if that's a stock, it's the discounted stream of future cash flows. If that were a bond, it would be the certainty you have with the payment of interest. Whatever it is, if the price is equal to fair value, you're probably agnostic as to whether to buy it or not. If the price is below fair value, investors will buy to try to close that gap. Well, as the price starts to move, traders are drawn to it because traders don't really care about fair value. They just want movement. They want to go long or they want to go short and they trade. Well, as the price starts to get above fair value, hedgers emerge. Well, what's a hedger? A hedger is someone who owns a commodity, whether it be oil or gold or Bitcoin. Bitcoin's classified as a commodity that produce it. And they now say, well, wait a minute, if the fair value is here and I can sell it at a price above fair value, well, I know I'm going to produce it tomorrow, so I'll just sell it in the futures market. And if you can sell an asset in the futures market, you need someone to take the opposite side. Those are called speculators. So speculators are taking the opposite side of a hedger. Well, then that increases the price. Now, when the price starts to really get higher above fair value, now the gamblers come in. And the gamblers not only buy the asset because it's moving, but they use leverage. And leverage is not evil in and of itself, but it's the amount of leverage relative to the volatility of an asset. So what happens is as those gamblers push the price to too high a level, it snaps, they get liquidated, the price starts to fall. And as the price starts to head towards fair value, the traders get nervous, so they sell and the price gets down. The hedgers can't sell because now the price is below fair value. So they'll just hold it until the price goes back up. And then the long-term investors wait until the price gets down here and they start buying again. So you get this natural cycle. I have empathy for the logic of the 4-year cycle being less relevant because we had a step function change in demand. Because at the end of the day, price is determined by buyers and sellers. And if there's, a lack of buyers, then the price needs to come down to meet that demand. If there's a surfeit of buyers, then the price needs to rise to meet the increased demand. So there is some logic to say, well, we have all this new money going into Bitcoin through the ETFs and institutional adoption. But there's one flaw-ish in that logic, which is, remember, every transaction, there's a buyer and a seller. For there to be excess demand, you would have to have, fewer sellers for price to rise. Meaning, the hedgers aren't producing as much. That's what the halving does, right? The halving intentionally deflates the number of block rewards. And so if I'm a hedger and I own a mining rig and now I only get 2 block rewards instead of 4, my costs are the same. I need the price to rise, so I'm less likely to sell until the price rises, which is part of the genius of the halving in my mind. The difference now is that for every new incremental buyer that we've seen, there's OGs, right? Wallets that have been inactive suddenly selling. And we're like, oh, that's so terrible. No, it's not. Look, if we meaning the community, want there to be billions and billions of Bitcoin owners and users, it can't all be in the hands of a small number of whales, right? Just mathematically. No, but it could, and the new people just get smaller and smaller increments. Sure. I mean, we can divide into 100 million Satoshis per Bitcoin. That's fine. But there are people who have very, very low cost basis who at some price will say, you know what? Yeah, I'll distribute a little bit. It's highly likely, Giovanni, that we don't have the same extremes, either up or down, partly because the amount of leverage that people can use has diminished, right? You can't get 100 to 1 anymore. You can get 50 to 1 at some places, and usually it's more like, 4 or 5 times. So if the leverage is less, you won't have the extremes. The reason gold doesn't have as much volatility is it's harder to lever. It's a more mature market. It's much larger, right? It's 10 times bigger than the market of Bitcoin. I mean, gold lost a whole Bitcoin in 2 days the other day, right? I mean, it lost 2.8 trillion in 2 days after going up 10 trillion a year to date. And so the law of large numbers says that you're not going to have the same level of volatility because you can't get the same amount of leverage. There's just not as many people. The second thing is gold has been a commodity longer than Bitcoin. And what I mean by that is there's a reason Bitcoin was labeled a commodity, not a security. And it's not a good reason, actually. It's intentional. Anything that's a commodity can be manipulated by the largest players in that commodity through the futures market. Well, that's a process known as spoofing, where the big guys, JP Morgan and Goldman and all these other guys in Europe, they are selling futures to compress the price, and they are day trading around it, which is technically illegal. And they pay fines. This is the crazy part. 2 years ago, JP Morgan paid a $940 million fine, almost $1 billion fine. Didn't have to admit any wrongdoing. Commodities and futures markets tend to have this rapid movement. That's a short squeeze. Because when the price is being manipulated, you got all these shorts, they're naked, and somebody starts to buy, whoever that is. This time it was China. China started buying gold. Well, now gold went into a super short covering. So all these guys, JP Morgan, they're having to cover their shorts, and we went from 3,400 to 4,400 instantaneously. Okay, well, now what's happening? Now they're back to shorting again. So now they're not shorting at 3,400, they're shorting at 4,400. And we went from 4,400 all the way back down to 4,000. And so it's that constant process of, spoofing, punctuated by these big short covering rallies. And again, this is that distribution. You got the OGs selling into it for the first time, which is good. We want that. We got fewer new buyers. We still have some, but we have fewer new buyers. And we've got the constant downward pressure from the futures market that's kind of capping prices. So, I think we're going to be stuck in a kind of squishy zone for a while I don't think we're going to have a massive correction like the last two cycles because we never got super overvalued. Do I think it could go down into the 70s? Yeah. I think we're in crypto winter. I do. And I know people don't want me to say it, but I think we're in crypto winter. But I don't think it's going to be severe. I just think it's going to be a more mild winter. If your average is 100, okay, what you have is a savings asset. You don't have a speculative asset, I will argue right now. The chances of making a quick buck on 100,000 from here, I think are pretty low. I think the likelihood that we get to, 500,000 in the next cycle, I think is really high, but that's 4+ years away. So what I think people should do, so I was on TV in 2018. And while I was on the show, literally, and I was on the show for like 6 minutes, but while I was on the show, the price went from 10,000 to 8,000. So it was a big move, right? And the host says, well, what should we do? I'm like, we should buy it. She says, well, you would always say that. I'm like, yeah, I would. Buy it today, buy it tomorrow, buy it next week, buy it next month. Don't buy it all at once. Figure out how much of your portfolio you want to own. Buy some today, buy some next week, some next month, the month after, and keep accumulating your savings bucket, right? Don't put the money that you need to pay the bills into a volatile asset, stocks, bonds, anything. I mean, that you need that to be in money that you can spend. But if you want to save your value and protect it from the ravages of inflation, you should be shifting as much of your savings bucket out of fiat into Bitcoin. But you shouldn't do it all at once. So in 2021, when we talked, we were in phase 2 of the 4 phases of innovation. So in the first phase of innovation, the incumbents ignore you. So from kind of 2009 to 2015, they ignored it, right? A bunch of nerds and geeks playing with their magic internet money, whatever. Then phase 2, kind of from 2016 to 21, you have then they laugh at you phase and they mock you and, stupid idiots playing with your magic internet money. But starting in 22, and I'll argue from 22 to kind of 27-ish, is the then they fight you phase. That's where the incumbents fight back, right? They try to erect barriers. They try to change regulatory rules. They try to, you had the whole, Operation Choke Point. I mean, you had all that stuff. And people say, well, that's over. I'm like, it's not over. I mean, Trump was going to give us a strategic Bitcoin reserve, right? Nope, we haven't seen that. Why? Well, because there's still people in DC, Elizabeth Warren and others that don't want that to happen.
월가 유명 헤지펀드 매니저 마크 유스코의 이야기 어떻게 들으셨나요? 지금 공포가 만연한 시장 속에서 마크 유스코는 앞으로의 비트코인이 어쩌면 조금 더 하락할 수 있을 것이라 이야기했습니다. 하지만 지금의 가격이 적정 가격이기 때문에 겁먹을 필요는 없다고 조언했는데요. 오히려 수요가 더 늘고 있기 때문에 결국 엄청난 상승이 있을 것이라고 이야기했습니다. 당장 사용하지 않아도 괜찮은 돈을 조금씩 비트코인에 투자하라는 조언을 남긴 마크 유스코. 저희는 이 시장에서 결국 살아남게 되는 걸까요? 하지만 제 채널에 등장하는 전문가들은 대부분 비트코인을 좋게 이야기해야 하는 위치에 있는 사람들이죠. 고객 자금을 굴리고 있거나 회사 자금으로 비트코인을 구매한 사람들이 많기 때문이죠. 시장에는 정답질환 없습니다. 아무리 전문가라지만 남이 하는 좋은 말만 들어서는 투자에 성공할 수 없겠죠. 제가 구독자분들이 객관적으로 비트코인을 판단하실 수 있게 2025년과 2026년 비트코인 전망 자료집을 만들었는데요. 자료집 안에는 국가별 비트코인 보유량과 평단가, 그리고 마이클 세일러가 운영하는 스트래티지 같은 트레저리 전략을 펼치는 기업들의 보유량과 평단가를 한눈에 보실 수 있게 차트에 표시해 두었고요. 날짜별로 비트코인 시장에 어떤 일이 있었는지도 따로 표시해 두어서 추후에 적어도 비트코인에 호재나 악재가 생겼을 때 참고하실 수 있겠죠. 그리고 가장 중요한 건 아직까지 많은 분들이 비트코인의 정확한 가치를 잘 모르시거나 비트코인은 주식이나 금에 비해 변동성이 너무 심해서 사기다 라는 말을 철석같이 믿고 비트코인을 자산 포트폴리오에서 배제하시는 분들이 많더라고요. 객관적인 사실을 살펴보실 수 있게 연도별 주요 자산 상승률과 하락률을 비교 차트로 만들어 두었고요. 받아보시는 방법은 간단합니다. 첫 번째로 구독과 좋아요 눌러주시고 제가 구독자 마크 확인할 수 있게 댓글에 대응이라고 두 글자 남겨주시고
지금 보시는 영상 하단 더보기랑 앤드류 커뮤니티 입장 링크 눌러주시고요. 이렇게 구독자 전용 이벤트 신청서가 나오게 되는데 여기 기타 부분을 체크해주신 뒤에 대응이라고 두 글자 적어주시고요. 전화번호 적어주신 뒤에 제출까지 눌러주시면 제가 구독자분 마크 확인하고 이 대응 자료집을 보내드리도록 하겠습니다. 자, 그리고 저희 구독자분들이 가장 많이 신청 주시고 있는 이 앤드류 자동매매 프로그램 구독자분들 딱 10분께만 더 공유를 해드리기로 했습니다. 자, 이 자동매매 프로그램의 성과는 지금 총 손익이 1000%를 넘었고요. 개인 투자자분들이 가장 못하는 이 우상향하는 자산을 끝까지 끌고 가지 못하는 그런 감정적인 부분을 배제할 수 있는 프로그램입니다. 자, 프로그램 로직은요, 저희 트레이딩팀에서 사용하는 약 13가지의 복합적인 지표를 넣어서요, 속임수를 거르고 상승 추세가 확실하게 나왔을 때만 진입을 하게 되고요. 매수와 매도, 익절과 손절 그 모든 과정이 차트에 이렇게 표시가 되는데 차트 표시뿐만 아니라 저희 구독자분들이라면 누구라도 이 하단에 거래 목록을 누르시면 이 프로그램이 몇 날 몇 시에 얼마에 사서 얼마에 팔았는지까지 정확하게 보실 수가 있습니다. 프로그램의 성과를 보시면요, 손절은 이렇게 10%, 5%, 많을 때는 18% 이렇게 짧게 끊고요. 수익이 나는 폭을 보시면 108%, 34% 그리고 또 많을 때는 300%가 넘는 이런 수익을 내기도 합니다. 자, 인간의 감정을 배제하고 높게 올라갈 수 있는 종목의 수익은 끝까지 끌고 가기 때문에 이런 좋은 성과가 날 수 있게 되는 거고요. 저희 구독자분들 중에서 본업이 바쁘셔서 좀 투자하시기가 어려운 분들, 꼭 자동매매를 해야 되겠다 하시는 분들만 신청을 주시면 좋을 것 같습니다. 자, 자동매매 프로그램 받으시는 법도 굉장히 간단합니다. 똑같이 좋아요와 구독 눌러주셔야 되는데요. 제가 구독자 마크를 확인할 수 있게 댓글에 자동이라고 꼭 두 글자 남겨주시고요. 마찬가지로 보시는 영상 하단 더보기랑 링크 눌러주시고 이렇게 구독자 이벤트 신청서에서 세 번째에 있는 알파빗 오토 프로 자동매매 지표 받기 눌러주시고요. 전화번호 남겨주시고 제출까지 눌러주시면 제가 댓글에서 구독자 마크 확인하고 이 자동매매 지표를 보내드리도록 하겠습니다.